Hello, dear Mindfulness Collective. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. If you're watching this anywhere other than twitch.tv/deepmindfulness, please come on over. This is where the discussion and chit-chat will be happening. I'm happy to have you here. Hello. Hello, folks. Welcome. Glad to see you. So, I got good news, folks. We're going to be meditating today. And not only are we going to be meditating, we're going to be doing a very special meditation. This is a meditation that has never been, not once, never been done before. The reason I know that is because today is what's known as Wacky Wednesdays, or some people have suggested Wuhan Wednesdays, but right now it's Wacky Wednesday. Wacky Wednesday simply means that we're going to come up with our own meditation built out of the pieces of what would be helpful to people. So, Raven's Butter, welcome. And then Carmi, I'm going to stick with Carmi instead of trying to, Carmi Sisechi? Much metta to you too. Welcome to the stream. So nice to see you. So, as we're winding up here, let me know where folks are coming from. I'd be very curious. It's hard to remember. So, Raven's Butter, Carmi, where are you coming from? Where are you meeting us from? I know Tumlin is visiting us from India. So yeah, where are folks visiting us from? Where are folks rolling in from? We're going to meditate for a little while. And if you also have any requests, any challenges that are arising in your meditation practice, in your life, these kind of things, let me know in the chat now, and I will embed that into the guided meditation so that we can address that specifically. And we'll have a little bit of fun. After that, we'll chit-chat like kitty cats and answer any questions and talk about any topics you would like to. I was recently talking with some friends, and it's interesting how, hello from Montreal, that's Gabriel. Welcome, Gabriel. Lovely to see you here. You know, the funny thing about a live stream, and this is always what's so strange about it, is that it actually is live with you right here. I got, Carmi. I think Carmi's probably better. Carmi. We have Gabriel. We have Raven's Butter. I'm glad you're here. John is joining us from Queens. So glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to have you here. And of course, if people are watching this on the replay, great to have you here too. Let us know. So we're going to be meditating for about 25 minutes. Nick is in lockdown in Sweden. Yeah, actually, I'm curious, is everyone in lockdown, or is this just sort of New York City and that kind of thing? Hello kitties, that's nice. So I'm curious if everyone else is in lockdown wherever you are, and what does lockdown mean? For us, they basically were saying, like, don't leave your house unless you have to. Do not go to the emergency room unless you're critically ill. Just like, I guess that's a good rule of thumb in general, but a little nerve-wracking, but that's generally how it is. And I also noticed talking to people, tell Sila's our little puppy who hopefully we can bring on the stream after the meditation. I've been telling people or talking to people, and some people are very, very, very stressed, which I totally understand. And I almost feel a little guilty because I feel less stressed. Maybe I should feel more stressed, but I feel prepared and also trying to be as low stress as possible because I'm trying to keep my immune system as high as possible. So that's my reason there. So, so how is people facing the lockdown? What is it like? What's coming up? I know a lot of people actually have situations where their family is more at danger than they are. There's my wife walking by, strolling out of the shower. Hello, Raquel. Some of you were here, I think, for a couple days ago when Raquel was here. Lovely having you here with us, Raquel. Raven's Butter, self-imposed lockdown so far, but I think public health measures will restrict that here in Toronto in the next few days. You know, it's funny, I was supposed to teach and we were going to fly into Toronto. This is going to be in a week or so. And everyone was like, we're not canceling. I was like, guys, I think it's going to get canceled. And so it did get canceled, or not canceled, got transitioned to a virtual event. So if people, P.S., if you're interested, the residential retreat that was happening at the end of April into March, hey, everyone's already on a residential retreat, so you might as well get on this, is now open for virtual participants. So anywhere in the world, if you want to participate in a residential retreat, this will be happening, end of April. So let me know if you're interested, and we can throw the links in the chat here. If not, just actually send me.
It's the end of March.
End of March. April.
Into April. You said end of April.
Oh yeah, end of March into April. Sorry. End of March into April. So it's in just in a couple weeks. So if you're interested in what's it called, being part of that, yeah, it's supposed to happen at Niagara, exactly, which is lovely, but right now that ain't happening. But you are more than welcome to participate virtually, and we're going to be guiding people on how to do that in their home. So downside of doing it at home, it's not as structured. It's harder. You have your your cell phone is there, that kind of thing, or your family. Then the other side of it is that it's actually going to help you integrate the practice into your life far more deeply, because you will actually have to do it in your life. So that is my general suggestion. I would love to, if people are interested in that, let me know. And the price obviously is going to be much, much lower because we don't have to pay for the residential side of things. So yeah, I guess actually, if folks are not on the email list yet, either give me your email address or the, what's it called? Let me pop this up. I think this should pop up the 7 guided meditations. Yeah. If you follow that link, it'll just get your email. It's like it gives you meditations, and then we gather an email. So that's just a way. We'll be emailing everybody out soon about that anyway. So that's an easy way to do it. Plus, we're going to be updating everybody with 15 meditations who signs up for that pretty soon. So, folks, any other challenges that you want addressed during this meditation? Otherwise, I'll just make it up, have some fun, and also, if you're a beginner meditator, let me know in the chat, because that's going to also shape what I'm doing. I'm assuming people, unless someone says I'm a beginner, I'm going to assume people are not beginners, and so it might be a little more challenging. But if you are a beginner, let me know, so I'll include that data as we practice. I'm going to encourage folks to remain still for the duration of the sit. So typically when we are sitting, the body will want to move and adjust and this kind of thing. So I'm going to suggest to remain still. And the way we do that is by finding a way to arrange the body well. So you can't really see it here, or can you? Can I make this thing adjust? I can't really see what's happening because of the stand. But either way, the way I'm sitting is so that my hips are lower than my knees, so that my back can sort of naturally rest in its normal curve, and it's the upper curve in the other direction. Our spine has 2 curves because we were on all fours, and then we sort of went up, so that has the original curve and then the lower curve, which is where we learn to stand upright. So actually we just want to balance the back. We don't want to be stiffening, bolt upright. So once you find that nice, comfortable position, and once I beckon my wife as such, Raquel, would you put the doggy in the its quiet place? Yeah, no, not that quiet place. The temporary quiet place. Well, we get into our temporary quiet place. Okay, folks, so we're going to be meditating for a little while. So finding that nice, comfortable position. And when you're ready, oh, Nick's reminding me, I forgot to say knees lower than the hips. If you can get the knees lower than the hips, that is ideal. Okay, and we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. In every moment of our lives, we have a few options. 2 of the main ones is to either be conscious or to allow ourselves to drift into unconsciousness. And so as we begin this meditation, seeing if we can simply tell the difference. What is it like to know what is occurring in this particular moment? Versus drifting away, forgetting what's actually occurring now. So we'll begin by moving through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. Starting at the top of the head, relax the brow. Deeply relaxing the muscles behind the eyes, allowing them to sink in the skull just slightly. Letting this relaxation spread to the face, letting the face go smooth. So too, relaxing the back of the tongue and allowing the jaw to go slack. No need to hold it closed. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders, and the upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands, tuning into the subtle sensations in the palms of the hands and tips of the fingers. Feeling the thousands of tiny sensations in this part of the body. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. And noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips and the upper legs. The knees and calves. Relaxing the ankles and relaxing the feet. And we're going to begin our exploration today by simply noticing that the mind will tend to either zoom into sensation or zoom out, gathering numerous sensations. We were zooming in a moment ago to each part of the body we relaxed. And now let's zoom out to all of the body's relaxing sensations. One large collection rather than a collection of parts. In meditation, we often talk about this idea of awakening, classical awakening, sometimes called enlightenment. But we're going to investigate our body sensations to begin with. Whatever body sensation we arrive at, or group of body sensations, we're going to ask that sensation a question. How is the sensation not awake? Awake in the way that we refer to awakening. And remember, we're not looking for mental answers. In this case, we're looking for answers that come in the form of body sensation itself. So for instance, if we feel the hands, we can inquire, in what way is this sensation not awake? Not fully free? And we can know if we're receiving a conceptual answer, if the answer is in any form other than body sensation. It's mental audio, mental visual. In what way is this experience not awake? Not fully vibrant, alive? And at times we'll become distracted. This is natural. It's not a problem. Just observing the return to sensing and referring the same question to the experience of distraction. In what way is this distraction experience not awake, alive? Noticing the difference between being distracted and knowing a distraction has occurred. Which one feels more alive? If we'd like to use a shorter question to keep the mind on track, we might simply say, is this awake? Or if we get so used to asking the question, we can simply ask, this? Letting that single word represent the entire question. not restricting ourselves to the body anywhere that we float, any distraction, any sound, mental image. Is this alive, vibrant? Even if it's something unpleasant, we may not like it. But does it have the same vibrancy? Which of the experiences that are occurring right now would be present, would be experienceable when this body is no longer alive? One day this body will not be functioning. So seeing if we can find any sensation, any movement of mind, any emotion that is not living and vibrant right now. Seeing if we can find anything in this moment that is not an expression of life. Even the thought of non-life, of death, it's a living, active, vibrant set of mental images, emotion, perhaps mental audio. Can I find anything that is not a current expression of animated life? Noticing the shapes and narratives that occur when I say the following words. Notice the tension in the mind as it waits. Notice that the mind, even the body as it waits, actively, vividly fills in the blank, this unknown space of what's going to come next. Sometimes half-formed thoughts, sometimes fully formed sentences. The living body-mind organizing raw, chaotic data into an imagined potential future. What is about to arrive? Noticing that the mind will lean towards what's about to occur, not knowing, guessing. Using a million pieces of past data to try to create a safe landing space. To know the moment which is about to occur. Nature can express itself in countless forms. In the form of a rock, of oxygen, or in the form of life. And life can express itself in countless forms, like an amoeba, or a plant, or a beautiful tropical bird. And right now, nature, in the form of life, is expressing itself as an ordinary human body-mind. People go through extraordinary lengths to feel alive. Rarely recognizing that there is no distance they need to travel. Every awareness, every sensation, every breath or pump of blood, every sense of space, every sense of me or not me. Every sense of the future or past. Each of these is a beautiful, unique, experience only occurring once in all of history. So taking a moment to observe this particular arrangement and expression of life. Allowing the body to remain still, staying with the practice, and letting a little bit of light enter the eyes. Eventually allowing them to rest on one point as they fully open. Staying with the practice, staying in stillness. Looking at the beautiful, rich, textured experience of life in the form of human seeing. And letting this moment, this transition, as we sit here with our eyes open, letting this be the teacher that shows us how to bring this practice into every aspect of our lives. Okay. So making any physical adjustments you need to allow the body to be comfortable. Welcome, Lewis. Lewis has just got here as the bell was struck. Well, listen, the bell being struck is just as important as any other part of the meditation. It's funny because whenever I guide a meditation, I'll typically say, either imagine that this particular moment is the most important moment of your life, or sometimes I'll say that every time you arrive at a meditation, you arrive with the momentum of all of the previous moments. This is what's known as, when they define karma, people wildly define it, poorly all the time. It literally just means momentum. So if we raced to get here, then we're going to have a racing sort of experience. If we were unkind to people our whole lives, then our lives are going to be pretty miserable. But it's not only each time we arrive at a meditation that we arrive with the momentum of all the previous moments. Every moment is built out of the momentum of the previous moments. So we get just as much from, connecting with the current experience of what's occurring right now, and looking at the part of the mind even that says, "Oh, this is boring. I've seen this before. I've been doing this a million times." Either beginning with ignoring that part of the mind. Actually, I have never experienced these visual, bodily, mental sensations in this moment ever. This is a new configuration that has never occurred. Ignoring that, or recognizing that same impulse. Okay, I've seen this before. Like, why would I watch my breath, or why would I look at the beautiful phantasmagoria that is seeing? I've seen that before. Some part of the mind often says that. It often comes in the form of just being distracted. To recognize even that pull, even that like desire to be distracted is sensing, is life, a living thing that would not be there if this human body were not alive. It's the same expression of the same beautiful material. So with that, I'd be very curious, what was your experience like? What was it like? What happened? And what are you like now? So folks, if you want to chat by voice, I think this should work. I don't know if we have this set up. I keep asking if we have this set up. We do not have it set up. Tomlin, if you're there, would you mind just putting the Discord link into the chat if folks want to chit-chat? Tell me about your experience, and I can answer questions beyond text. I'm more than happy to do so. Just jump into our Discord, and there's a section called Voice Waiting Room. Hop in there, and then we'll pull you onto the stream, and you can talk about your experience. Or if you'd like to have your experience be just shared text-wise, please let us know. Thank you, Tomlin, for that. Tomlin is helpfully throwing that up here. Let's see. Yeah, so what was that experience like? What happened, and what do you like now? And or any other challenges that are arising, folks who are quarantined or soon to be quarantined. What's going on, man? Nick says, love this one. Well, I'm glad you loved it. There's a, I never actually watched the show very much, but it's called Boardwalk Empire, and apparently there's a character on there who's like a sociopath, and anything you said to him, especially like a compliment, would be taken as something else. So it's funny because the mind does this sort of automatically. It just seems like he turned that into a whole character. But it's like, I love this one. A flash of my mind says, only this one? So you're saying the rest of my, that kind of thing. I thought that's funny, watching that occur. Love this one. People go to great lengths to feel alive. Yeah, I mean, people do, like you said, base jumping and all sorts of, they do lots of drugs and they do all this stuff. I want to feel alive. And it's like, yeah, man, you can skip the middleman. The thing is that often what actually that's about is that the ordinary experience of being alive feels they're almost numb to it because the system either doesn't like what it's actually experiencing, so it needs to push that away and get something else. So it's so numb that the only way it can feel alive is to do something really intense. And this is often why you'll see sort of this trope of like in TV shows and writing and in real life, someone who's like has PTSD, and the only way they can feel alive is by doing crazy shit. So massive stimulation to the senses, the silence of the narrative, and it's also, I think people are so caught in the experience stream of our weird modern lives that we are desensitized to just experiencing how rich life is. Let's see. The silence, the internal narrative seems smarter to learn how to do it the other way around. Maybe daily activities can be rewarding as base jumping. Honestly, I know this sounds like it's kind of Pollyanna-ish and like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, I remember there was a day that I had, it was like, 10 or 12, probably more than that, like 12, 13 years ago, where I was like, this is the best day I've ever had in my life. Like nothing really happened, but this is it. This is like the best day I've ever had. And I was like all surprised about that. It truly, truly feels like when I pay attention, when I even do a little bit of practice or just now, that this is the best moment I've ever experienced in my life. This moment is better than any experience. And it sounds so cheesy. It sounds so like so easy to dismiss, but it really, 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 this is really, really rich, and I wouldn't trade the richness of this for anything else. So, Let's see, a little easier than base jumping. I'd never seen it, but some people really are like that. I know. Exactly. Okay, so Raven's Butter, which I can't get over how great that name is. So Raven's Butter. Really enjoyed that guidance. Thank you, Janusz. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Question about body-mind weirdness. Great. Love this. I felt like I was going deep at a certain point in the guidance and then suddenly had quite a strong involuntary convulsion. I'm guessing you mean physical convulsion, the body moving suddenly, just like a big old shake of the whole body. Is there any reason to view such things as significant, or would you say it's just another expression of life or nature? Well, it's sort of a double answer. One is yes, absolutely significant. I mean, so let's answer from this perspective. It's very significant. And you want to be paying very, very close attention to things that happen like that, because they are really, really, really significant, and they're potentially extremely impactful and potentially totally transformative. That said, that's how if you asked me if anything was significant, I just blew my nose. Is that significant? Yes, it is actually very, very significant, and that seems very silly, but that's really true. And so I'm going to answer this now from a less sort of flippant perspective, is that our system, sometimes when we're meditating, we're going deep, we'll have what are called kriyas, and the body will like shake or just rock back and forth or whatever. It's just basically unintended, maybe involuntary body movements, body, sort of actions that occur in meditation. And so the general position, at least in insight, mindfulness meditation, just let it happen. It's happening, not a big deal, not the end of the world, not the greatest thing. Some people will say it's an indication that you're going to a certain place. And certain practices, I think in Hinduism, they talk about like you have to have those experiences and this kind of thing. It's just another experience. You may find that for you it's tied to certain areas of practice, and that's just it. I would just let it happen, not a big deal. One thing you want to do is get your practice strong enough so that when, whatever involuntary things, sort of jitters of the body occur, it doesn't pull you out of that depth. So it doesn't pull you out of a place where it's sort of taking things apart. Okay, bigger answer. Somebody has to ask another question. I'll just keep answering this question for like an hour and a half. Bigger answer is that, see if my mind can go back to what it was, just where it was just a second ago. Any involuntary movement of the mind, movement of the body. Well, I forget. I'm sure I'll remember at some point if it's of interest. So I ended my own mind stream there. So there you go. So hopefully that helps answer the question. If it doesn't, please let me know if there's any other bits or pieces there about kriyas or involuntary body movements. Yeah. Oh, yes, I remember what it was. Okay. So one thing we want to look at those experiences of depth that we have. Okay, this feels like it's deep. It feels like something's really happening and transforming. And what I talk about is the rule of contrast, that we know experiences by contrast. This is the example I always give. You can hear my voice because there aren't 1,000 of my voices occurring. It's contrasting with the silence. All of our sensations are like, oh, it feels tight in my hand. Well, how do you know it feels tight and look nearby? Well, it's not tight nearby, or I have a sense memory of it being not tight before. So the mind to know anything is typically comparing it to something else. So when we have that sense of, okay, this is deep, how do we know it's deep? Well, we know it's deep because it's different than our ordinary, everyday, boring experience. But we want to be careful because there can be the sense that, oh, deep is better, deep is the way to go. But actually, the depth is showing you depth, but it's also showing you normality. And if you can start to really soak into that, they're always both showing you both. So your experience of normality is actually, right now, check in with, okay, this is just normal or ordinary seeing or ordinary, etc. Well, in a way, it's like, how do we know that? It's because we've had experiences, many in our lives, that are so contrasting to what's happening now, that we can see this as being sort of ordinary. You had an experience a moment ago that felt sort of deep or very deep, and you know that experience, even if it's not very, at the foreground of your experiencing right now, you know it effectively in contrast. So starting to learn to let things teach you their opposites. I categorize this in the rest category, like that, if you hear a loud sound, it's loud because it's relatively loud to everything else. So letting ordinary experience teach you about depth. A more sort of esoteric, weird version of this, so stick with me for a minute, this is going to get very weird. Hopefully folks are okay with things getting weird here. It's what my friend Deb and I talk about as not this. Deb's been watching on the replays lately, so hello Deb, watching the replay. It's called, we talk about it as not this. So if we take any particular experience that's occurring right now, typically we know that experience, like I said, in contrast. So there's a way in which you can take any current sensory experience and through its presentness know its absence. So I know that okay, I feel very present, I'm seeing, okay, this is present, and I know that by effectively not that. So we can actually tune into the emptiness, the not this of our experience. This is often what people talk about as emptiness, that the presentness of these experiences is showing us the opposite as it is. So there's this sort of void of emptiness that is present or is palpable because of the rule of contrast. So hopefully that's not too wackadoodle. We try not to be mystical here, just to be very grounded, but also get into the weird territory for fun. So hopefully that's a bit of an answer to your question. Any other questions, challenges that are arising in people's lives? I know that being sequestered is challenging. If people haven't seen, I think it was it the last stream? Today's Wednesday, right? Was it the Monday? Yeah, it was the Monday stream. We did a whole thing on the three sections of basically beating isolation. What's the vital physiological and evolutionary need for connection with other people as we're isolating ourselves? What is the physical danger of not isolating ourselves in terms of not only for ourselves but for people around us who we might never even meet? And then third, what are strategies that we can use to not experience what's going on as so much isolation? I mean, if you're isolating yourself right now, you probably know that there's a certain level of isolation sort of buildup. I have this sense of like kind of anxiety just from sort of feeling contained. So just noticing that is occurring, accepting that sort of, if there is a tension like that for you, or this sort of buildup of being here, talk to people about it, go outside, move the body so that you can kind of work through whatever that is. You take the puppy as our good example. Whenever anything sort of scary happens to my puppy, it shakes it off, so however we have to shake it off and connect with other people about it. Nick says, got a call from my dad, so sorry if I already spoke about this. Can you define going deep? Yeah, that's a good question. Also, can you turn any activity into enjoyment, like how you described it? Or is there a line you cannot cross, and where is my personal line? So I get a little wary when we say, let's turn everything into enjoyment, because it can actually be torturous. Turn everything, in certain religions or certain sort of religious leaders will say everything is joy. Well, what about my sadness? Well, you're screwing up. Or they'll just deny it. You're not feeling sadness. It's just it's so painful to observe. So I could say that from what I've seen, I've been able to lesser and greater degrees turn every one of my experiences into something that is far more satisfying than I would have initially experienced it as. And I would say that for me, the definition of awakening is once the system begins to do that on its own, that would be early stages of awakening. It's just the system is making that transition for us, or at least we've seen the neutrality and the satisfying richness of our senses so many times that it's just apparent immediately. I'm shaking the world. Oh no, everything's falling apart. So forgive me for the Pratt joke. So that's what I would say. I wouldn't say necessarily joy. Some people could call that joy, but I would call it more fulfillment or even acceptance. And it's also that when we talk about really deep acceptance, often we can experience that as very satisfying because it's so neutral compared to the sort of constant of the system. It's always wanting some future moment, something. So the neutrality can feel incredibly relieving in my personal experience. So I could say relieving or fulfilling in that way. My threshold is, I'll give you two personal cases, and I like to keep this as personal as possible because people BS about their, sort of where they are spiritually, and I think that's very problematic in our society. One is pain. I do not have the capability of having intense pain and just being like, oh, I'm fine, la-ti-da. Like, I hear about people who, like, one example is that when I'm on retreat, there's this guy who does Rolfing, and apparently Shinzen can just sit there and just be like, la la la, like, okay, a little more here. For me, it's still this thing where it's, you know, like the whole system responds in that way. I can't, it's very hard to just accept that. So that level of pain is difficult for me, and above that. That's one thing. The other thing is, honestly, and I'll just say this, you know, outright, I've been meditating for years, and it's probably the single most helpful thing for my mental health and for my being okay. And that said, because of old trauma that I'm still working with a therapist around, seeking new experimental, you know, modes of treatment, my system still gets overwhelmed with what I could only label as depression. Like, it's just, it's funny because I never thought of it as depression, but it's like I just get knocked out and I'm like laying there and I'm like, oh, my day is done. I'm just going to lay down. And, you know, it's embarrassing to some degree to talk about. I think in general for people to talk about, like, oh yeah, sometimes this body-mind system experiences depression. But also as a meditation teacher, you know, you're supposed to be like, oh yes, I'm the voice of wisdom and you should do X, Y, and Z. And here's all the ways that you're not good enough, right? That's often sort of the implication when talking to some sort of spiritual or meditation teacher. So those are just two examples of where I don't have, you know, the skill of just acceptance doesn't seem to be able to do that. However, within both of those, the knowledge that I have done it in the past has been an actually incredible tool for breaking through that. So I've had experiences of feeling very hopeless and this kind of thing, and then seeing, oh yes, this is the body-mind in the hopeless experience, and just that sort of critical distance is really, really, it's a helpful wedge. But I've found that in order to actually activate that wedge and really make it take hold so I can step out of that experience and sort of get better perspective, and by perspective having relief, is I have to tell other people. I have to talk to other people about what's actually occurring. I feel really hopeless. The system is just sort of overrun right now, etc. And when I do that, it feels so relieving. Even talking about this now, I can feel this sort of systemic, deep sort of release, like, okay, this is happening, and that's actually fine. So hopefully that helps answer that particular question. Airplane John from Queens says, the question around sensing being awake or alive was a great way to be reminded that one doesn't need to try to be aware. Awareness is just natural. Yeah, I mean, you said it. I don't think I can add anything to that. It's just a lot of what I talk about and have been for a while now is we're just observing nature, and it's just nature observing nature. And something that's been very interesting for me lately is this development around life, that what we're experiencing is a living expression. And it's hard at first to notice that, but then once you do, it's like you can't have contact with anything but life. There's no inside or outside in that way. Raven's Butter says, just the right amount of wackadoodle. Yeah, we do get a little wackadoodle here. Thank you for your answer. Lots to ponder there. Yeah, and if there's more to ponder, then feel free to write that down as a question. P.S. Either here or in the Discord, which I'll copy once more. Let's see here. Oops. Okay. In the Discord, which I'll copy, you can ask questions that will come in. Oh, thanks. That will come into the in the Discord. You can ask them offline when you have a question. So anytime a question hits your brain, feel free to drop it in the Discord, and then I'll answer it on stream later. So Nick says, yeah, not that it would be a great idea, just if it's possible. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And it's good to develop those skills, but we don't want to torture ourselves and just like, oh, I should feel pain because I should be able to get through anything. You know, if that's the goal, it's important, and I think it's a good skill to have, but we have lots of things to develop. John says, the containment has an uncomfortable quality of it, lots of restless energy. Exactly. And something I noticed that's sort of interesting is that I'm staying inside more, even though you don't have to stay inside. Like you can just go outside and be in the park, or you know, as long as you're not touching surfaces, as long as you're, you know, sanitizing your hands, as long as you're, not interacting with other people, we can go outside. There's no hindrance there. And yet I find myself staying in more, which makes sense. There's a little bit of ambient sort of concern or fear, and, you know, all those extra actions. And that said, I have to look at why am I staying in more, or not even why, but maybe I could just get through that and try to be outside a little bit more, move the body and experience nature if I can. Let's see here. Then Nick says, my dad is so anxious and hypochondriac about this. Not sure how to help him. Just going to ask about the pain in particular. Interesting. So appreciate your honesty and not acting like you're totally transcended the human body. Yeah, I mean, it's so common that teachers do that, or in some way or another, and I'm sure I do in unconscious ways. But one thing I would mention here, I think we'll be tying it up pretty soon. I got to jump off, but one thing I want to mention, Nick, just to your dad, I don't know if this is helpful, but there are articles that talk about how the neurobiology, that stress deeply affects our immune system. And so for me, that was a helpful reminder, because I found I was getting more and more anxious. And there's a way, the reason we get anxious is because the system feels by doing that, we're going to solve a problem and be safer. And there's part of us that wants to feel safe, so we do that. So what I generally suggest is, if people, sometimes that kind of top-down cognitive answer can tell people, hey, you can, if you do this, you'll actually be more safe from the viruses. You get prepared, cool, and don't worry, and do whatever you need to do to not worry and feel chill and relaxed, and good exercise, and figure out how to exercise indoors or whatever it is, or outdoors. Me and Raquel are going for bike rides later today. So that's helpful. Hopefully that's maybe a piece of useful information, folks. It was so lovely to have you here. Guess what? I have a big announcement. In less than 48 hours, we're going to be right back here having fun, having a good time. So if you are watching this anywhere other than twitch.tv/deepmindfulness, come on over. If you're here and you haven't followed the channel, there's a little follow button, and that can give you updates. If you do your settings, it give you updates for when we go live. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, and we're going to be back very soon. I'm going to put on our fun music. I like this music. Let's see. There's a new GIF that I wanted to get. I'm going to see if I can find this GIF and replace this one, because it's Corona related and it's very funny. Here we go. No, that's